Hello everybody, we are going to be talking about the Dynasty Shipyard mission today. This is a pretty good one. It's not particularly difficult, but I would say it's definitely not easy. It's pretty good to do, I'd say, at level 55 plus. If you get a group of 60s, it should be fairly simple. In this case, when I recorded this, we had a 52 in the group. He was a little bit squishy, but he did all right. He actually seconded as a tank. So I'm going to go through the entire thing and explain to you guys a couple different ways to do this. For instance, the way that I prefer to do it is with 2 healers, 2 DPS, and 1 tank. The more common way I'd say to do it is with 1 healer, 3 DPS, and 1 tank, or 1 healer, 2 DPS, and 2 tanks. In this case, we had 2 healers just because they happened to be there and wanted to do the mission, so it worked out really well. Either way, you definitely need a healer for this run through, no matter what you do. Do not try to do this with no heals and just potions. You're just not going to survive. And you need a tank with a good amount of taunt. In my case, I have a carnelian gem on my sword. Also, you'll see my dude is holding a great axe, so when I'm not doing tank, I am trying to do at least a little bit of DPS. Now, the first part of your mission, you're going to be going up against pretty easy NPCs, so tank, I recommend that, and again, this is from the perspective of the tank, because I'm usually a tank in most games, so that's going to be my best advice for you. But tank, make sure you bring in DPS as your secondary so that you can contribute a little bit more to the damage. If you have a good healer, you don't really need a major tank until you get to some of the bigger bosses. So your first part of the mission, you're going to be going through just knocking down some NPCs, and then you're going to get to the first boss, who is not super hard. We're going to fast forward to him. You know, I considered just cutting to the next clip, but those chipmunk sounds were just too hilarious to skip. So the first boss is a caster, and the casters in this particular dungeon actually give you a preview of what you're going to have to deal with on the final boss, who is all caster, who is all mage, and she's very powerful. So Summoner Yao, he's one of the first ones you're going to need for your side quest of getting all the shackles. There's a dude right at the beginning before you actually go into the Dynasty Shipyard who will give you a mission to collect shackles from 3 different minor bosses. This is one of them. He's not particularly hard. You're going to have to deal with corruption, of course, so make sure that your healer is on the job, and otherwise it's not a big deal. Summoner Yao goes down pretty easy. None of his attacks are super powerful. Your team, as long as they're not very low level, should be able to just tank him by default. You'll see most of the time I whipped out the sword and shield to keep his attention, but I was also taking out the two-handed axe because this guy doesn't hit super hard. So he should go down pretty quick. If you've got a DPS heavy team, which is a good way to go, then this guy should drop in no time whatsoever. Once he drops, you're going to loot your shackles, assuming that you have that mission, which you really should, and then you're going to clear out the last of the NPCs, and you're going to open the next door. Okay, so once that door is cleared, you're going to come across your first save point, your respawn point. You're going to be out in the actual shipyards. You're going to be grabbing a bunch of low-level NPCs. Very easy to kill with a group. What I did, as you can see here, is I grabbed multiple NPCs so that we could just get this over with. If your group is averaging mid-50s, maybe low 50s, you might want to do this one small group at a time just to be safe. But we had mostly 60s and upper 50s and then one lower level guy. So I was taking a few more risks here. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be going through the different NPCs. You're going to be tearing them up, and then you're going to be planting explosives at each of the ships. Now the first ship is right next to these NPCs that you can see me fighting here, so it's pretty easy to do. You just drop them right there. You see the little white area where you drop the explosives. After you clear the NPCs, put those first ones down. And we're just going to fast forward through this real quick after you beat out the NPCs. Don't forget there is actually a supply crate back near the entrance that you came through. can see me getting there. If only I could move this fast with a haste potion, huh? And you're going to grab your supply case. You're going to go over to the main, well, not the main, he's actually quite weak, but the next minor boss, Spearman Chu? I don't know, man. I don't speak that language, but that is him right there. Just like the other bosses, he's pretty easy to defeat. This one's actually weaker than the rest, in my opinion, because he's melee. His melee's not particularly good. If you feel like tanking it, if you're playing as a tank, go ahead and do it. I pretty much just played as DPS because he's not really that threatening. You could take care of him rather quickly. He has no real special abilities that make him frightening. He has some powerful melee attacks, so if you have extremely squishy casters in your group, make sure that they're not getting attacked by him, so you're going to want that taunt for your tank. But for the most case, he was hitting me and our other minor tank. You can see he's got his shield up, so we took care of this guy pretty quick. Again, when you kill him, he's going to drop shackles. You're going to want to pick those up for your side quest, and then you're going to want to plant the explosives at the other ship as well as the door. And let me show you how that looks real quick, because we actually made a mistake where we forgot to plant them at the door, and these rockets that were supposed to launch at the ships never appeared. So I'll show you how that looks. Pew, 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 pew. So once all that stuff is blown up, you're on to the next area. This is going to be another save point. By the way, if you're working your way towards 60, make sure you're harvesting those Dragon Glory flowers. You need to get one flower for a particular quest just right around level 60. That's kind of annoying to find. If you're in a guild or company, whatever you want to call it, you should be able to find it pretty easy. But just in case, you should be harvesting those all the time because other people can use them as well. Alright, so next up is Maiden, Jing, Faye. Now, she is your first true preview of what you're going to have to deal with at the end of this particular dungeon. She is a caster. She's quite a powerful caster, actually. You'll see I switched to Sword and Shield for this because I needed to draw aggro. In this case, I was drawing aggro of the ads, but I believe I switched over to her pretty soon afterwards. But anyway, she does this thing. I call it Circle Snake. I realize it's a dragon, but you'll see when I get to the lady at the end, I have names for each of the attacks. It works. It's silly, but it works. But she does this thing where she circles a dragon around herself. It's very damaging. Here she is to do it again. And your best bet is to either dodge away or to block it with a shield if you are a tank. Her ads are not super scary, but she does do a lot of damage. You could see me taking some hits here because I wasn't really asking for heals at the moment. But she is pretty easy to kill, just like the other guys, so long as you avoid her special attacks. The Circle Snake, as I call it, or Circle Dragon, whatever. And she does another one where she shoots laser beams. So make sure that your tank has her attention because you do not want her shooting at your more squishy members. But once she goes down, I don't believe this one drops the shackles. I believe that part is done. This one just has a chance of dropping good loot. By the way, if it's your first time going through Dynasty Shipyards, you're going to have a better chance at getting purple loots. They drop quite frequently in most cases for first timers. Second timers, not so much, but they still do drop. So it's a good one to repeat with friends and to help them out. As you can see, I picked up a purple musket there. Kind of useless to me, but had I been a musket user, that would have been a nice little level 500 item score drop. Start pushing me towards being able to do level 60 quests. Now, as you come up the stairs, you're going to come into a blank area here. There's not much going on. You're just going to keep going. You're going to be coming back to this area. This area right up here, as a matter of fact, you can see these closed gates. Those gates are going to unlock later on in the Dynasty Shipyard run through. Now, here's where you're going to face your first boss of significant difficulty. Now, he's not super hard, but he is pretty powerful. Your tank needs to go full tank for this. Your tank cannot be running around trying to do DPS. He needs to keep this guy's attention because this guy hits rather hard. As you can see, he does 3-hit combos. He busts through my stamina pretty hardcore, and I'm at Sword and Shield 20 for this recording here, and I'm level 60. So make sure your tank is doing his job. Our sub-tank, which is Kel, you can see him in the background, went full DPS. I told him to just switch to DPS. And it's good to have two tanks in your group where one of them can switch between roles pretty easily. but that's just my personal preference. Now this guy, he's got a ton of health. Your tank isn't expected to take him down. He's just expected to keep his attention. You can see I'm keeping this guy busy while everyone else in the team is fighting those two casters. The casters that they're fighting are not very hard. They do have some pretty powerful hits, so your casters do need to be ready to roll out of the way. As with almost every dungeon, your team needs to be a very effective dodging/rolling team. They need to know what they're doing when they're about to get attacked. Usually the tank will call out, hey, you're about to be hit by whatever attack. Here he comes. He's looking at you. He's no longer focused on me. So it's up to you, though. Each group is a little bit different. But yes, definitely get your rolls down. Now this guy, he's got a pretty easily understood repertoire. He just goes through his throwing hit, his 3-hit combo, and a powerful stomp. So as long as you can tell what he's about to do, you can block against it just fine, and then hit him a couple times as a tank to get your stamina back. He's also, when he does that 3-person combo you just saw right there, he'll oftentimes miss you completely if you go behind him. So keep that in mind as well. All right, we're going to fast forward through this fight. Again, not a very difficult fight, but this is your first actual challenge of the dungeon. After this guy, things get interesting. As you can see in this recording, I was getting quite lucky. I actually got quite a few purple drops, which my past couple runs in Dynasty did not get. As I said earlier, if this is your first run through, you're likely to get more purples than the average person. But after you've done it once, your likelihood goes down a bit. In this case, though, I got quite a few. That was pretty cool. And now we move on to the next shipyard area. This is where we start to go into a corrupted area. So you're going to want to make sure you hit this, or excuse me, this is not corrupted, but right after this part is. This is where we're going to be taking on waves of enemies. These are also quite simple, but good XP, good weapon XP. That's why I was using my great axe for this. I'm trying to level it up. And this is a good place to do that. So let me fast forward up to the part where we're going to take on the waves. Oh yeah, one other quick note, there is a supply crate behind that respawn point, so if you just hang a hard right as you come past it, you can go pick that up. Supply crates drop a lot of crafting supplies, and once in a while they'll drop a purple for you as well. I have endless amounts of tannin, but I never really need to use it, so this is a good place to grab that kind of stuff. If you are a crafter, even if you're not, grab it anyway because you could help other company members out. Okay, on to the waves. We're going to run down to the dock and take on wave after wave of not very difficult enemies. Forgot to mention, you are going to come up against Lieutenant Bolin here on your first dock. He is not difficult, just like the other melee mini-boss. He hits kind of hard, but again, if you've got any sort of decent amount of tank in your group, shouldn't even be a problem. You can see I'm actually using the two-handed axe here because he's that easy. So we bust this guy up pretty quick. Then you'll notice off to my right there, you see the end of the ship. There's actually a place that you're going to put barrels down to explode the ship. The moment you place those barrels, you're going to start to get wave after wave of NPCs. We're going to fast forward through that as well because there's nothing special to watch there. So enjoy the chipmunks versus the NPC swarms. And just like the first dock, the second dock is basically rinse and repeat. You're going to have to place explosives, fight waves of NPCs. The only difference here is off to the right side of the ship. As you approach it, there is actually a supply crate. Make sure you grab that before you actually do the waves. You'll see that here. And again, chipmunks versus NPCs. Here we go. Okay, so now we get to the actual first real boss. In my opinion, that's an actual challenge. Now this one's interesting. In my recording, I actually wiped. I was stupid. I put up my... I kept trying to hit her when I was really supposed to be tanking, so that was my fault. And you'll see it here. I'll get to that part. She has two dogs. She has Joven off there to the right, and the other one, I can't remember his name, to the left. She's going to fight you in a mix of both melee and ranged combat. She's not super hard, to be honest. So again, tank just has to keep her attention most of the time, and your team will be fine. However, she does attack from a ship nearby. She has some gunners up there, so your ranged guys are going to have to take care of them throughout the battle. And she does a couple pretty strong attacks. But again, they're not that bad as long as you have a decent tank on your team. She's not super tough. It's actually her dogs that are hard. So we're going to get through this whole beating her up and get straight to the dogs, because those are the real bosses. There's some debate whether they're dogs or cats, but whatever they are, they're pretty scary, and you need a good tank. So the way you do this, in my opinion, at least every time I've played through, the best way to do it is have your tank focus on one NPC, on one of the kitty cats. Just have him completely focused on one of them, and the healer and everybody else is focused on the other cat, taking that cat down. So what you want to do is just have your tank. As you can see, I'm just fighting the kitty over here, taking some hits. I do get wiped here because unfortunately I was not being tanky enough. I was too busy trying to hit this guy and be a little bit more useful, and you'll see what happens when I do that here in a short while. But we're going to fast forward through this fight as well. If you're looking for a strategy for this fight, like I said, everyone should be on one cat. You can see the one in the background there taking some pretty good hits. He's going to go down pretty soon. Unfortunately, I was not doing a very good job of tanking. And once one cat is down, the second cat should be pretty easy to defeat, because everyone's going to have their DPS on him, plus the tank is keeping his attention. In our case, when I went down, we did have a backup tank. That's why I do suggest you have a second minor tank, perhaps someone who has sword and shield but uses their other weapon primarily. It's good to have just in case of an emergency. That way, if the tank goes down, your team doesn't just instant wipe. Okay, so we're going to fast forward through this. And now this is interesting, actually. When you defeat both cats, the lady actually doesn't continue to fight. She just leaves. So I'm assuming she shows up in another dungeon somewhere. I don't get to see her again. Up there I go getting wiped out like a fool. But you don't get to see her again. I'm assuming she's somewhere else. But anyway, let's get through this. Congratulations, you've defeated the kitty cats, or evil dogs, depending on what you think they are, and you're on to what is essentially the last area before the final boss. Now, this area is mostly just full of NPCs that are not super powerful. There's a couple minor bosses, not even worth mentioning, to be honest. The last one, the second to last one that you'll see me fight in a moment, he's a caster similar to the other casters, so he does do good damage. Just make sure that your healer is on point. By the way, I recommend when you go through this area, instead of just going straight down the middle, go to every single building. Most of them have supply crates in them, so it's great if you want to get supply crates. However, if you're looking to just rush this dungeon, you do not need to do those side areas. You just fight your way right down the road. In our case, we did in fact go to every single house, as you'll see here. One thing I should note here is that Summoner Guang, this guy we're fighting right here, he has some weird pathing and he tends to get stuck behind the bridge or underneath the house, so make sure that you're pulling him out into the street if possible. You can see that's what we were doing here because he actually heals himself as well if you take too long. And yeah, that was annoying. We had to kill him twice basically. And then you're going to fight your way through the rest of the houses until you reach the final, well, he's not really even a mini, he's a mini boss I guess, but he's not that great of a boss to be honest. And yeah, his what is his name? Captain Captain Kaiwei. Anyway, he's another melee mini boss. Not very powerful. He has a shield, which is annoying, but other than that, you're gonna mow through this guy really quick. He is guarding the gate back into the area you just walked through, so that you could face the final boss. So let's get through this and get to her. She is the real focus, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you will just fast forward to the part where we're fighting the final boss, because most of the rest pretty easy to do, but that last one, she is quite a challenge. During this recording, we did wipe once. In fact, I had a game crash, which was fun. But anyway, let's get to that. So before we get to that, actually, let me tell you there's 3 main attacks that the main boss is going to do. I have 3 names for them. I call it Circle Snake, Straight Snake, and Pukey Snake. And I will demonstrate now. Oh, you hit her before I did. She's going to come for BRB. Circle Snake.
Nope.
There you go. Pukey Snake. Alright, we'll get to the straight snake slash dragon here in a moment, but as you can see, when she gets about half health, she comes out up into the air and she spawns all these NPC secondaries. They are pretty powerful, but you know, they're not too tough. But the important thing to look out for is the pedestals. Now you're gonna see that she spawns these things called pearl pedestals. These things need to go down as quickly as possible. They basically do whatever she's doing right back at you. So if she's doing her little circle snake thing, these are going to be doing it too. If she's shooting lasers at you, these are going to be doing it too. You see that? That was what I call the straight snake or dragon. You want your DPSers to take these pedestals down as quickly as possible. Now, I've seen other guys that say later in the fight when she spawns a bunch of those pedestals to also take them down, but we found that leaving them alone is better. And I will show you what that is here in a moment, but we will be taking down the first 2 pedestals. So when she spawns the first wave of NPCs and the initial 2 pedestals, you need to try and take both pedestals down. Unfortunately, we weren't able to take both down quick enough because she came back down to the ground and we had to continue the fight against her. Now, if you see on my screen, there was no pedestals on this side of the battlefield. So what the team did is we all pulled back to this side because all those moves she's doing, like the circle snakes there, they're not hurting us because they're on the other side of the fight. Our healer, for example, she's rolling out of there as well. And now there's another straight snake attack. I'm telling everyone to get down. They basically just have to dodge out of the way and they'll be just fine. The wave attack that you can see her doing there, that attack is unblockable from what I've seen and undodgeable. You just got to take the hit. So make sure that your team has sufficient amount of constitution. I didn't show this in the video, but some of my team members actually had to put on some armor that added constitution as well as eat some food that added constitution because some of them were running into issues where they were getting one shot by moves like this. What I call the Pukey Snake. It does so much damage, you can see it totally breaks my shield tank in one hit. So I do recommend that if possible you bring more constitution than you might normally bring as a caster or a DPSer, because some of these hits can one-shot you if you're not careful. But aside from that, breaking through this lady is not too tough once you've got the whole pattern down of blocking against her. of what attacks do what, then you should be just fine. You can see we've pretty much got this thing under control, so let's fast forward through her death. So for those wondering how long the dungeon takes, if you're speedrunning it, just going through the bosses and skipping any NPC distractions, you could probably bust this thing out in 30 minutes with a really good group. If you are trying to kill everything and have the increased chance of drops, it's going to take you 45 minutes to 1 hour. In this case, it took us about 1 hour exactly. That was primarily because I crashed once during the boss fight and we all wiped, and then our DPSer crashed as well. You probably saw it earlier in the video. BRB, what's his name? He crashed as well. I think it's a bug with this boss fight because I've seen a lot of people crash in this particular part of the quest. Hopefully they patch this out pretty quick. But that's it, guys. Oh yeah, and don't forget to grab the supply stockpile at the end, of course. Aside from that, that's it. There's a lot of good mid-level, 500 level purple drops here, so it's a good way to start your build towards 500 plus gear score. My guy is almost averaging 500. I'm not super good and I don't play this game non-stop. I have a job and stuff, but I'm getting there. I'm at 471 in this here, as you can see, and so it's a good way to start pushing yourself upwards without having to go out and solo by yourself. And don't forget, of course, to turn in your thing to Gual the Liberator. He will give you a repeatable quest to do it all over again. You'll get a chest based on your level. That is it, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. And I hope you enjoyed this quick guide. Not so quick, but if you fast forwarded to the boss fight, not so bad. See you guys on the next one.